A 200-pound English Mastiff was returned twice. Every family used the same 3 words: too big, too clingy, too much. He sat in Kennel 9 for 417 days while 38 people walked past his run without slowing down. Then a 34-year-old hospice nurse signed one piece of paper. And what a $38 camera caught inside her house at 3 in the morning is the only reason Grace Holloway is alive to tell you any of this. Grace Holloway was 34 and lived alone off Old Hillsborough Road, just south of Franklin, Tennessee. For 6 years, she had been a hospice nurse, calm in the rooms most people fled. Then, 10 months ago, she watched her own mother die in that same house, and something in her went quiet and stayed that way. She still drank her coffee at 5:40 a.m. every morning at a table built for 2. She had managed type 1 diabetes since she was 9, and she knew her body better than anyone. Remember that part. She wasn't looking for a dog, just dropping off her late mother's blankets at the Harpeth Valley Animal Shelter one Saturday in September. But when she passed the last kennel, she stopped. Kennel 9. A fawn English Mastiff, all 200 pounds of him, aimed at a door no one ever walked through. The card was brutal. Surrendered at 2 when his owner went into assisted living, adopted, returned in 9 days, adopted again, returned in 3 weeks. The last family wrote one line on the form: "He's too much." The coordinator, Marlene, was honest. "He's never once growled," she said. "He just has to be near a person every second or he falls apart." Grace crouched at the bars. The Mastiff turned his enormous head, looked right at her, and pressed his face to the metal with a broken sound that was almost a word. "Please." "What's his name?" she asked. "We've been calling him Otis." Grace didn't stand back up. "I'll take him," she said. Bringing home 200 pounds of Mastiff is not a quiet event. Otis knocked the coat rack flat in his first minute, decided the couch was his, and followed Grace from room to room like a restless shadow. For the first time in 10 months, the house was not silent, and Grace had no idea the cheap $38 camera she almost never mounted was about to break her heart and 4 months later, save her life. I see you're still here, but you still haven't subscribed, and after a dog like Otis, 417 days facing a concrete wall, waiting for a person who never came, that one tap honestly means something. Hit subscribe and stay with Grace and Otis, because what this camera caught is the part you will never forget. The trouble started the first morning Grace left for a shift. She closed the door at 6 a.m. and made it to the bottom of the drive before she heard it. A long, low howl bleeding through the walls, the sound of a 200-pound dog certain he had just been abandoned for the 3rd time. By the 3rd day, there was a note from the propane driver: "Your dog cries the whole time you're gone." So Grace bought a cheap $38 pet camera, aimed it at the living room, and started checking on Otis from the nurse's station on her breaks. She expected to watch him pace and cry. What she saw on her first lunch break made her set her food down and stare. Every single time Grace left, Otis did the exact same things in the exact same order. First, he pressed his nose into the gap under the front door for almost a full minute, breathing her in. Then, he pulled her mother's old gray cardigan out of the laundry basket, only the cardigan, never anything else, carried it to the middle of the floor, lay down on it, faced the door, and waited. For 12 hours, he barely moved. The crying lasted maybe 4 minutes, then stopped. He wasn't destroying anything. He was grieving quietly and choosing to wait for her anyway. But it was the other clip that Grace kept rewinding, the one from the middle of the night. At almost exactly 3 a.m., Otis rose from the floor by her bed, crossed to her side, and pressed his nose against her hand where it hung off the mattress. He held it there. He breathed. Then he went back to his spot and slept. She thought it was the sweetest thing she had ever seen. She had no idea it was the most important thing in that house. Grace started leaving 2 of her mother's cardigans on the floor before every shift, and then something happened she never saw coming. For the first time since her mother died, she slept through an entire night. She had not slept properly in almost a year, lying awake at 2 a.m., cataloging every creak of the old house, every silence where her mother's breathing used to be. But Otis slept on the floor on her side of the bed, and the slow, heavy sound of 200 pounds of Mastiff breathing in the dark was the only thing that had ever quieted her mind. By the 2nd month, Otis had a routine, and Grace had a life again. He ate breakfast only after she sat down with her coffee. Every morning, he pressed his forehead against her knee for one long second before she left, like a small promise. One Tuesday evening, something strange happened that she brushed off. She was folding laundry when Otis walked over and shoved his nose hard into her palm, huffing, refusing to leave her side. She laughed and pushed him away. 10 minutes later, her hand started to shake and her vision swam, and she realized her blood sugar had dropped low, lower than it should have. She ate, felt better, and told herself the dog wanted attention. She was a nurse. She knew coincidence when she saw it. Except it wasn't coincidence, and it was about to happen again when it counted. It was 3 weeks later that she understood the nightly clip was not a one-time thing. While clearing weeks of footage from the full camera app, she saw the same scene over and over at the same timestamp, 3 a.m., 3:04. Every single night within a few minutes of 3 in the morning, Otis rose, walked to the front door, stood with his nose almost touching the seam for a slow count of 10, crossed to the kitchen, then came to her bedside and pressed his nose to her hand or her face and breathed her in before going back to sleep. Every night, the same rounds, the same minute. For weeks, she had slept straight through it, never knowing the dog 2 families threw away was walking guard over her in the dark. She showed the clip to a coworker, who laughed and called Otis her night shift. Grace laughed too. What neither understood was what he was checking for at her bedside, or that it would soon matter more than anything in the world. It happened on a Thursday in January, after a double shift that had gutted her. She had lost a patient that afternoon, a woman her mother's age, and came home wrung out, forgot to eat, and miscalculated her insulin for the first time in years. She fell into bed before 10 p.m. Somewhere in the deep middle of the night, her blood sugar slid, quietly, then dangerously, down past the number where a sleeping body does not wake up again. At 3 a.m., Otis did not do his rounds. At 3 a.m., for the first time in his life, Otis climbed onto the bed. 200 pounds landed across Grace's chest and she woke gasping, drenched in sweat, her head splitting, the room tilting, her hands too clumsy to work. She tried to shove him off and couldn't. Otis barked full volume, the windows humming, and clamped the sleeve of her shirt in his teeth and pulled, dragging her half off the mattress. She hit the floor, and the cold of it cleared her head for one breath. Her nurse's brain surfaced one word through the fog: sugar. She crawled. Otis stayed pressed against her the whole way, hurting her, blocking her when she drifted wrong, until she reached the kitchen and forced down juice and glucose tablets with shaking fingers. Then she called 911 with a phone she could barely hold. The Franklin paramedics were there in 9 minutes. When they tested her, her blood sugar read 31, a number that in a sleeping body is often the last one a person ever has. The medic crouched beside her, a 200-pound Mastiff leaning into her side, and said the things she knew as a nurse but never imagined would be about her. "Ma'am, at that level, in your sleep, you do not wake up on your own. Something got you out of that bed. What was it?" Grace looked at Otis, at the worried eyes, and the dog who had been pressing his nose to her hand at 3 a.m. every night, like he was reading a number in her blood she had slept straight through. "It was him," she said. "He's been doing it every night. I just never knew what he was counting." The same 200-pound Mastiff that 2 families returned. The same dog they called too clingy, too needy, too much. The shadowing was never neediness. The nose against her hand at 3 every morning was never a quirk. Otis had been smelling the thing going wrong in her long before it ever showed, guarding a life the whole shelter had walked past. It was never too much. It was exactly enough. Grace has a continuous glucose monitor on her arm now and an alarm that screams when her sugar drops. But Otis still does his rounds every night at 3, still presses his nose to her hand, still checks a number no machine taught him to read. When Marlene heard the whole story 2 weeks later, she posted it on the Harpeth Valley page with a photo of Otis taking up an entire couch. Within 4 days, the shelter received 26 applications, and 3 large dogs who had waited over a year, the too much ones nobody stops for, went home that month. Today, Otis is 4 years old. He still knocks things flat with his tail, still drags her mother's cardigan to the middle of the floor when she leaves, and the drool is still a daily event. Every morning before her shift, he presses his forehead to her knee for one long second, like a promise. "I'll be right here. Go. I'll be right here. And Grace, who once sat with the dying and then came home to a house full of nothing, does not come home to silence anymore. We like to tell ourselves we rescue them. We sign the paper, we buy the food, we say we saved their lives. But sometimes the animal the whole town walked past has been counting something the rest of us are too busy or too tired or too broken to notice, standing watch at 3 a.m. over the people who forgot how to keep watch over themselves. So tell me, did Grace rescue Otis that night, or had he been rescuing her every single night at 3 a.m. all along? Tell me in the comments. And if a dog the world gave up on ever walked into your life and changed it, say their name below, because someone scrolling alone tonight needs to read it.